and welcome to the Point After podcast here at the Cameron Studios, the studios here at Cetus in the podcast studios. And I think this is episode 9, and we're getting ready for the football season. But first and foremost, welcome into the Oklahoma Sports Network. If you have not, and we encourage you to download our free apps. In fact, they're everywhere. Apple and Android devices on your phone so you can watch on the go. 12 schools now in the network, including Jones as our latest, newest addition to the Oklahoma Sports Network in 2A. Welcome them in the north side of Oklahoma City. And so we're glad to bring them on as part of the network. Also on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV, and social media. You can connect us basically wherever you live. So if it's on Facebook, if it's on Instagram, if it's on TikTok, if it's on X, we're there, and we'll meet you there to tell you all of what we've got going on. So if you like to follow us on Facebook, that's an interesting way to connect with us, to know what we've got. Some fall sports coming up. We'll have volleyball, we've got softball coming up, and we've got football coming up right around the corner. And that will bring me to my first guest today, David Stanley, of course, athletic trainer for the Lawton High Wolverines. We've known each other for a long time. It goes back a few. I'm going to date myself to find out.
Gosh,
I think I remember the first time I called Lawton High football. I always remember it in this way, and you'll remember the years. Aso Pogai was a junior. Antonio Perkins was a sophomore. And then we started from there. And I think that year they went 5-5 and missed the playoffs. I think it was the first time I did Lawton High football. And then the next year after that, it was a fun ride. It had undefeated seasons, going to semifinals. And so that was a really good stretch there. So, David, there's a lot of excitement. And I've been talking to some Lawton High alum, and I thought we're going to run the gamut and talk to each one of the programs and break things down. And we kind of did that in the spring and talked to coaches and whatnot, but you're instrumental. Of course, we had a change, and Coach Lorenzo is here. We've kind of talked a little bit about that, but you and I have been talking about some other things that I kind of want to bring up, that I was in contact with some Lawton High alum that really did not know, okay, well, we got a new coach. Well, now what? Well, the numbers are up. Let's talk about that, about Coach Zoe, I think is what you call him?
Yeah, Coach Zoe.
Coach Zoe is recruiting the hallways, and what has been the benefits of it? Let's start there.
Well, gosh, dang, I don't know really where to start. As soon as Zoe got in, he made himself very available to all the athletes. He was coming to the basketball games. And at that point, he was just driving back and forth for more. He hadn't sold his house yet, so he's here every day. He's recruiting the halls. He's at the ball games. He's at every game, home and away. And kids start to get to know him, start trusting him. They're having conversations. And we've had many conversations with athletes. And all he wanted was these kids to come out and during spring ball and give him that time. And if they didn't like it, he could go back. They could go back to whatever sport they were going to play. But every one of them that's come out has stayed out. I attribute that to the coaching staff. Zoe does a great job. All the coaches do a good job. They're all on the same page. They're all saying the same things, and it's fun again. It's a lot of fun. It's excitement. The kids are putting in work. It's a really good time right now to be a Wolverine.
Talk about the numbers. Like, how many has he got out right now? Because you were talking about having to order new helmets.
Yeah, we had to order helmets. The old ones were kind of old. We had to replace all of those. We ordered 80, thinking that would be enough. And I think we had to order 30 or 40 more.
Wow.
So helmets and shoulder pads they were a big need, and then they became a scarcity. So we had to order more. And so everybody's got a brand new helmet, new shoulder pads, new uniforms. Everybody's going to look fresh and clean come August 30th.
Yeah, that's next week and Friday, and then we're going to talk a little bit about why that first game is so important and back to where it was when it started many years ago. But there's going to be something new with the helmets, and for those who kind of remember the black watch, that was kind of like the Wolverine wings, as they would call it, was black on the helmet. And I noticed a change in the spring, and so I reached out to you and I said, I noticed that there is a white wing look So white and red, is that what's going to be on the helmets? And you assured me that that's exactly what it is, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's just going to be a different look, a different feel, kind of fresh, new energy. It's just kind of like the Wolverine, Michigan Wolverine stripe. It'll be like that, but it'll be white. It just kind of gives it a fresh, clean look. No other decals will be on the helmet, just the white stripe. So It's going to look really nice, especially with the new uniform. It's going to kind of take from that stripe pattern and kind of go down into the uniform as well.
Okay, so is there anything new with the uniforms? I mean, it's going to be the typical red, I'm sure, but anything in with that?
No, just the design is a little bit kind of match that striping a little bit. Kind of carry some of those stripes into the pad, onto the shoulder.
Well, and sometimes they had the moniker like Lawton in the front,
onto the band, so it'll look pretty sharp.
I mean, the Lawton, like the logo up in the front.
Say that again.
The word Lawton, I mean, is on the jersey. Is that going to be up there somewhere? Okay.
Yeah, Lawton will be on the front of the jerseys. Yeah, it'll look sharp.
Okay, so we've talked about and we've done different features on this, and we talked a little bit about the home field as far as a practice field. And I noticed even with the heat, teams have been able to practice, before school started and even after a little bit of nighttime practices because you had lights. You have artificial turf, which we talked about. We have lights, we have bleachers, we have a press box. And there's been kind of back and forth, and I want to validate whether or not are we going to see freshman and JV games at that stadium when we talk about Lawton High being home for those games?
Yes, our freshman JV games, the home games, all the city teams will be playing their freshman JV games at their home stadium this year.
Now, you talk about being an athletic trainer, and we've talked to you a little bit about this, about how an advantage is for you and your staff to not have to load all that up and take it to Cameron or Ron Stevens Stadium. How cool is it to have a home field advantage for these youngsters there?
Man, I can't wait. I've talked to my buddies up in the city that are athletic trainers that have stadiums at their school, and that's just normal to them. And I told them what we had to do, and they're just like, man, I can't believe that y'all have to do that. And so I'll have to get back to you on as far as what it's going to feel like and what it means, because I haven't done it yet. So I'm anxious to, I'm excited about that aspect. Half of the year, I don't have to pack up my trailer and haul it to Cameron or haul it to wherever we're going. And because that's one of those deals, if you forget something, you just forget it and you don't have it, and you just kind of have to make do without it. So having something here at Lawton High School, if I forget something, I just run in here real quick and get it. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to the crowd showing up and the band and the cheerleaders. We had a little bit of that last weekend. We had our Wolverine bash. That whole stadium on the west side, the home side, was completely full for our inter squad scrimmage. We had the band out there, cheerleaders, high steppers. Like it was kind of a preview of things to come.
David Stanley, our guest, athletic trainer for the Lawton High Wolverines. We're talking about the Wolverines this year, talking about Coach Zoe bringing in a whole bunch of new looks, and not only outside as far as what the helmets and the jerseys will look like, as far as what kind of offense he's going to bring, and then, of course, the JV and the freshmen being able to play at their home field. Now, varsity, all of those games are still scheduled to play at Cameron, correct?
Yes. This year,
go ahead.
I was going to say this year, my understanding is everything's going to be the varsity is going to be at Cameron, and then next year we're thinking that we were going to be able to play all of our games at home. Wow.
Well, that's going to be something to look forward to, and that makes a real true home field advantage when you get that kind of look. Also, I want to talk a little bit about the Cameron Stadium, of course, had a little bit of an update, which we were encouraged by. That I was seeing because we're at the CETUS office here at Cameron, and I called Gary Dees, the athletic director, and I said, Well, there looks like there's some changes. It doesn't look like they're changing light bulbs. It looks like the frame of that is changed too. Is there something going on about that? He said, yeah, we're bringing in LED lights and finally, bring us up to 2024, with technology, like when the Sooners went to that and, were able to turn those on and off and flash when there's touchdowns. And I've seen other stadiums that do that, but I think they got the home side complete now. Cross our fingers. I don't know if it will be LED on one side for the next week's game, and then the regulars until they get those on. But they stated schedule, but at least half of them, the home side is up that I noticed, and they're going to probably work on the next one for next week. So what does the LED lights bring into the game atmosphere coming up?
Just brighter, just almost daytime conditions. It's pretty amazing when you flip them on. They have an app that I can turn the lights on and off from my phone and from different locations. It takes about 3 seconds from the time you hit on for them to come on completely. And man, it just makes, you could practice all night, every night on the LED lighting, and the brightness is just amazing.
And it also saves on electricity too. So, we're
right,
having
absolutely.
bills. So yeah, that really is going to cut down a little bit on the usage of that. So that's a new little change there that fans can expect. Now let's get to the big thing that everybody's going to be talking about. I can't believe that, when we get past that summer mode and you get back to school and you just turn your head right around the corner, and I don't wish it too soon, because I'll look up and it'll be week 5 just like that. But a couple of changes for the program. We talked about the newness of the look of the helmets, also the uniforms, but also a class size change. So I know the last time the Wolverines won a state title was in Class 5A, because there was no 6A schools then. And so now back to 5A. So Eisenhower and Lawton High will kind of switch. Eisenhower will go to 6A2. Eisenhower and Lawton High will be to 5A. And because they kind of split up the Lawton schools, I guess the coaches go and they make that decision. And what's been long-term is Bishop McGinnis over there on the side of Carl Albert. They will slide over to where MacArthur is, leaving Lawton High in with Carl Albert and Guthrie, John Marshall. There's a host of those. So there'll be some new opponents and a new look. But I'm really kind of encouraged, because looking at on paper now, and knowing a little bit of the opponents, you have Carl Albert and Guthrie. And even if you said that, Lawton High right out of the gate will have an opportunity to compete for all of those spots, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and a playoff spot in 5A. And how exciting is that with the change to be in that district?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I think time will tell. I think it's going to be a matter of our coaches getting used to playing other schools and their coaching styles. I think Zoe is just looking at his coaching career up in Westmore. He's used to 6A1 coaches. I think he knows a lot of the coaches in 5A, but I don't know that he's got to coach against them much. I think once we get adjusted to kind of the competition and the coaching style and how other teams are playing, I think that we'll settle in pretty good.
Well, I want to go to your wheelhouse, athletic trainer. You've been there. I won't even ask you how long you've been there. They should already give you a gold watch and a ring for all the years that you put in. This time of the year, of course, very cautious. I know you have the little heat bubble, and, the temperatures have just been outrageous. What's that been like? I know that, that's Oklahoma. It's what we are used to. It's not like, oh gosh, where did this come from? We're unprepared for it. So how has that been for this year? And what have you guys been doing as far as practice methodology and safety for the team?
So we have this instrument right here behind me. I don't know if you can see it. We put that out on the turf every afternoon. It gives us a wet bulb reading. It's basically, the wet bulb is a number that you can gauge the humidity in the air. If it gets the humidity and the moisture gets in the air and it's too high, some of the kids, when they sweat, they can't evaporate it because the moisture is even to or higher than the humidity in the air. So when it gets that high, we get into in a red zone. We have the coaches take the helmets off, sometimes shoulder pads. We kind of alter practice. When it gets into black, we have to call off practice. So what we've been doing is we've been practicing later in the afternoon. We start around 6:30. By that time, the temperature is dropping a little. It goes from 110 to 102 and that sometimes makes a huge difference. And it by the time we're finished, it's dark, it's cool, and we haven't had any heat illness with anybody. Knock on wood. The kids are acclimated. We had a lot of kids coming up through summer program, and they were outside doing agilities or whatever, running, and they're pretty acclimated. Normally, the only issues we have are incoming freshmen that maybe didn't go to Summer Pride and weren't acclimated to the heat. But yeah, if you're from Oklahoma, we've had a couple of kids move here from out of state, and they can't comprehend the heat.
Yeah, I understand. Back in our day, when they gave you those big salt pills, that looked like a horse had to swallow, and and they said toughen up, and don't you remember? I mean, oh gosh, the kids will not believe us when they say water. You don't need any water. Water is for the weak. It's like no water breaks, and thankfully all that's behind us. We got smarter. We don't have to work harder. We got smarter. And is there anything with that, with new technology, new things that you like to play around with, new toys and new stuff? So what have you seen that kind of help the new student athletes right now?
There's a lot of sports drinks now that have that are electrolyte based, where these kids a lot of times they're not just losing fluids, they're losing a lot of electrolytes. So some of these drinks now, it used to be just Gatorade, but now that thing has kind of taken off, and there's all kinds of drinks that have electrolytes in them, replacement, and nutrition bars. But the main thing is just putting in the work outside during the summer. And you don't need those fancy drinks if you're putting in work and you're eating properly. There's a lot of technology that hasn't already been used or is being used at the time. But the main thing is the ability to get yourself acclimated to that heat, drink plenty of fluids. And a lot of times dehydration, when you have heat cramps, that's usually not a problem that started that day. That's a problem that started earlier in the week. Kids drinking a lot of caffeinated sodas, drinks like that. And when they get to the game, their body just depletes all of that and you start getting those cramps. So we haven't seen those issues right now. We have plenty of, I have a lot of student trainers that run water during practice all day long. So every group, wherever they go, water goes with them. So the kids have the ability to get a drink when they want to drink, not when there's a scheduled break.
Yeah, that's always good too. I noticed that big change there. And speaking of those volunteers, and you always have them every year, how many do you have to kind of help facilitate that? I know you've got, you have to have your support staff and volunteers, a lot of students. So how many you got this year helping out with the program?
I have about 6 right now, 6 or 7, depending on the day. But usually 6 show up every day of practice, and we have a gator that fortunately John Zelps helped us allocate, and we load that thing up with water, and we're just going back and forth to the field house, right? Because right now we don't have any water out on the field, like a water spigot, so we have to bring the coolers inside, fill them up, take them back out there, and that's just a constant stream of that. We probably go through 6 or 7 10-gallon coolers, so we're going through 70, 80 gallons of water during a practice.
During a practice. Wow. That's load that up. And so, that's really a great thing. Well, David, I appreciate you spending some time with us. And I know that you and I are both football fans and have been in these programs, and there's been a lot of new changes. And I think before we started, and I think I'll echo what you said, is, I have not been this excited for football in a long time. And I think that's as a whole, because of all where the programs are, what LPS has done to upgrade the facilities. I think people can take a lot of pride when they vote for a bond issue and they drive around and they see where the money is well spent. And, I'll just say athletics really got a boost. And, I know some programs you don't see it or don't get it as much, but hats off to a great effort to really visibly see where the money is going. And the kids are benefiting from it. I mean, started off with activities buses a few years ago to kind of get off of just the regular yellows. And then from there, just keep improving, and it's not like you're really competing, because we're not like a college, you have to entice people to come, but you want to make it the best resources available for the kids. And I think they've done a really good job.
Absolutely. And speaking of improving, and they're building a concession stand at all three schools right now as we speak. I mean, they've got the foundation poured just north of the football field here. So we'll have a state-of-the-art concession stand, bathrooms. There'll be spring sport lockers, if I'm understanding that correctly, on the north side of it. But it's going to be a big, nice, really cool looking building. So we're slowly implementing changes so that when we do start having varsity games here, we're set up.
Yeah, well, I can't wait. I won't know what to do with myself when you see the emblems on there. You got your school pride. The school is right next door in your parking lot. And so many times our teams have had to go up and play in atmospheres like that. And now you create that atmosphere. It's really, truly a home field advantage. So I'm all for it. I think that's great.
Yeah, it's going to be nice. I can't wait.
You got to get taking care of the rest of what you got to get to before a practice starts again. It is 1 week from Friday, and we'll close out with this. How fun is it to have Lawton High and Eisenhower as the first game kicked off like it used to be, where both schools would have all their alumni come in. They would do their class reunions around there, and you'd see, I love on social media, the class of whatever would post all of the ones that showed up for game day, and we're going to pack out Cameron Stadium on the next week, Friday. How cool is that to have week 0 game with these two clashing?
Yeah, I think bringing that back to game number 1 is, I think it's really cool. It's the way everybody's used to. I think that you get the biggest crowds and the most enthusiasm when you have the Lawton High Eisenhower game week 1, for sure.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. Well, David, thank you very much for your time and spending us a little bit of time in this podcast.
Hey, you're welcome, Eric. Anytime.
All right. So David Stanley, of course, helping out with the Lawton High Wolverines for so many years. And that is another edition of The Point After on the Oklahoma Sports Network. Don't forget, the download the apps. That is what I have to preach over and over and over again, because, some people say, well, how do I find you? You can go to our website. Yes. oksportsnet.com. That's always been there. That's our landing page, but we're app driven. And so that's so much easier, because when you're a fan of high school football, and we've got the 12 schools that I mentioned, all 3 Lawton schools, Cache, Elgin, Walters, Altus, Newcastle, all of Middale, with Midwest City, Del City, Carl Albert, and Jones as our newest school. That is all in the network. You can just go from game to game, so you can easily access them on your phone, Apple and Android. It's free to download and free to watch. We're also on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're up live on YouTube. And then follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. We're on all the social media platforms where you can find us. It's football season right around the corner, coming a week from tomorrow, and that will be MacArthur and Elgin on a Thursday night for a packed house at Cameron Stadium, and then Lawton High and Eisenhower on Friday night at Cameron. Cannot wait. You've been listening to this podcast of The Point After on the Oklahoma Sports Network.